Raven and the Theft of Light, the quest that brought dawn to mankind. Opening, when darkness covered the world. Long, long ago, when the world had no light, all things lived in eternal darkness. There was no sun to warm the earth, no moon to guide the way, and no stars to wish upon. Only darkness, thick, cold, and terrifyingly silent. People stumbled through the pitch-black night, wild beasts prowled unseen, and the ocean whispered secrets that no one could understand. No one had ever known the colors of day. No one had ever seen a sunrise. The world was blind and lost. But deep in the wild forests and remote mountains, there was a creature who refused to accept that fate. He wasn't a god. He wasn't a hero. He was Raven, sly, cunning, and full of tricks. But more than anything else, Raven hungered for change. He looked out over the world swallowed by shadows and let out a laugh, not because he enjoyed the darkness, but because he found it absurd that the world had simply accepted it. And so, Raven made a vow. I will bring back the light. Even if I must steal the sun, the moon, and the stars, I will do it. No one believed a black-feathered trickster could accomplish such a feat, but Raven never needed permission. All he needed was a plan. And he had one. Because Raven knew a secret. At the end of a faraway river, there lived a rich old man, selfish and cruel. He alone possessed what the entire world longed for, light. The old man kept the sun, the moon, and the stars locked away in 3 magical boxes inside his home, for himself and his daughter to enjoy. As for the rest of the world, let them wander in the dark. Raven knew brute force wouldn't work. But he had something else, a brilliant mind. So he devised the boldest trick he'd ever tried. He didn't fly into the old man's house. He didn't break in or fight. Instead, he turned himself into a tiny speck of glowing dust. And he floated gently down the river, where the old man's daughter would fetch water each morning. When the girl drank from her water bowl, the speck of dust slipped quietly into her body. 9 months later, she gave birth to a strange child, with eyes like flickering fire, a mischievous smile, and a cry that echoed like the beating of wings. No one knew this child was Raven, reborn. The boy grew quickly, adored by the old man, and the first thing he begged for was to see the boxes of light. He cried, whined, rolled on the floor, causing such a ruckus that the entire household trembled. At last the old man, softened by love, gave in. He opened the first box. Brilliant light poured into the room. The child burst into laughter. 1 box. Then the second. And finally the last box. But as the lid cracked open and light exploded into the air, the boy vanished. In his place, a black raven soared up through the ceiling, carrying the sun, the moon, and the stars. He flew over forests, over oceans, over mountaintops, scattering light across the sky. For the first time, humanity saw the dawn. For the first time, stars sparkled in the night sky. For the first time, the world knew what it meant to hope. And from that day forward, even though people still called Raven a trickster, a troublemaker, a thief, they could never deny one thing. He was the one who brought light to the world. Chapter 1. The Child Born from Darkness. Raven was no fool. He knew that to steal the light from the most wicked being in the northern lands, the old sorcerer who guarded the sun, the moon, and the stars, he would have to step into the very heart of darkness. But how could a creature like Raven, with his jet-black feathers and raspy caw, ever enter a house protected by ancient magic and bottomless greed? He needed a way no one would expect. So Raven watched. For many weeks, he soared near the river where the old man's daughter came each morning to fetch water. She was as lovely as a silent flower blooming in the night, long hair, sorrowful eyes, and gentle hands that whispered to the water as if it understood her. One day, when the river reflected the moonlight shimmering from a box the old man had opened, Raven made the boldest decision of his life. He would not steal the light with wings, but with a human heart. On a moonless night, Raven flew higher than ever before, reaching the realm where spirits dwelled. He transformed into a speck of light, tiny, shimmering, light as breath. That speck drifted down to the river, merging with the cool water, carried by the small ripples. The next morning, as the girl came as usual to fill her bucket, she had no idea that within that water something miraculous had begun. Time passed. In the house protected by 3 magical boxes of light, the girl began to notice something strange. Her body changed, her heart beat faster, and her dreams were filled with fire and the sound of wings. Not long after, the old man realized his daughter was with child. He raged, questioned her, cursed the spirits, and vowed to punish whoever had dared to touch his daughter. But despite using every spell he knew, he could not discover the child's father. And then, on a windless night, when all 3 boxes of light were tightly sealed, the girl gave birth. The child was unlike any other being. He didn't cry like most newborns, but let out a low, hoarse sound, like a raven announcing the dawn. His eyes were neither black nor brown, but sparkled like flames dancing in the dark. And when he grasped his mother's hand for the first time, a soft glimmer of light flickered in his tiny palm. The girl cradled him close, warmth blooming in her chest. Even the old man, though suspicious, was soothed by the boy's mysterious gaze. "Perhaps a gift from the spirits," he muttered, allowing the child to stay. The baby grew fast, like a forest tree in spring rain. At just 3 weeks old, he could sit, smile, and gaze at the boxes of light with a strange obsession. by 4 weeks he spoke his first words. Not father or mother, but light. The girl laughed, thinking her son was precocious. But the old man grew wary. At 7 weeks, the child crawled into the old man's lap and reached toward the first box, the one containing the stars. He said nothing, only gazed at the old man with glistening, tearful eyes. The old man, softening, opened the lid to soothe him. In that moment, stars spilled out of the box, soared to the ceiling, and stuck to the sky like glowing jewels. The girl gasped in awe. The old man snapped the lid shut, but it was too late. For the first time, the night sky sparkled with stars. Just once, the old man told himself. Just once to make the child happy. But it wasn't the last time. The following week, the baby cried again, this time for the moon. He wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat, wouldn't smile unless he saw the moon. Again the old man gave in. And so, the moon slipped from the box, floating into the sky, casting its gentle glow across the sleeping land. The girl grew more puzzled. The old man became fearful. But the child remained quiet, watching, waiting. Then came the final box, the sun. The child didn't cry this time. He smiled. That smile, wide, radiant, cunning, like the dawn itself. No, the old man shouted as the baby pointed to the box. But the girl, in love with her son, begged her father to open it. The moment the lid lifted and light burst forth, everything changed. In a flash, the child vanished from his mother's arms. Only the sound of powerful wings and triumphant laughter echoed in the air. "It's Raven," the old man cried, but it was too late. The glorious black bird soared into the sky, carrying the final light, the sun, and released it at the heaven's peak. Blinding light flooded the world. From that day on, day and night began. Wasn't Raven cunning? But his journey isn't over yet. Raven will soon face the wrath of the sorcerer, and many secrets are still to come. Chapter 2: The Wrath of the Light Keeper. As the sunlight first broke over the horizon, warming the cold mountains and kindling hope for all living creatures, deep beneath the earth, in the ancient house where light had once been imprisoned, a roar echoed like a thunderclap. The old man, the keeper of the light for centuries, fell to his knees amidst the ashes of the 3 sacred boxes. His hands trembled, eyes bloodshot, no longer the powerful sorcerer he once was, but a betrayed father, a keeper who had lost his greatest treasure. "He tricked me," the old man whispered, his voice thick with rage. "That damned crow deceived me, with my own blood." The fury was more than just a shout. The old man rose, thrusting his hands into the thick air, tearing a magical rift through the fading night. From that crack, he called upon ancient beings, shadows he had sealed away since his youth. They were lost souls, starving for light, ready to devour anyone who dared take it. "Go," he commanded. "Find the treacherous crow. Bring the light back, or tear it apart." The dark shadows screamed like a furious storm wind, then flew toward the sky, leaving behind a house quaking from the magic that had been set free. Meanwhile, the crow was flying, not like a thief escaping, but like a victorious god. On his back, 3 of the world's most precious gifts had been freed. The stars now adorned the night sky, the moon drifted gently, and the sun, brilliant and warm, was rising higher, lighting the world for the first time. Below, the trees rustled as if awakening. Birds sang out in joy never before known. Humans, tribes who had lived in the shadows, looked up, their eyes wide in astonishment at the light. A child touched the first rays of sunshine. An old mother, trembling, smiled as she saw her son's face clearly for the first time. A blind elder raised his hand and wept, not for the light, but for the hope that had returned. The crow soared through the blazing sky, landing atop the highest mountain, shouting, "Light belongs to all. No one has the right to imprison it." But the moment his words ended, the sky darkened. Not because the sun had disappeared, but because the dark shadows summoned by the old man had arrived. They had no clear form. Were they smoke? Wind? The whispers of fear? All that was known was that wherever they passed, the light dimmed, the air grew cold, and even the earth seemed to hold its breath. The crow looked up. His eyes still burned with light, but his wings trembled. He knew these were no ordinary enemies. These were ancient shadows, born from greed and solitude. One shadow drew closer, its voice ringing not from a mouth, but directly into the crow's mind. "You've broken the law. Light is not for all creatures. It must be controlled, kept by the strongest." The crow did not reply. He spread his wings and soared into the sky, luring them away from the humans. The chase through the heavens began. One side, the tiny but blazing light, the other, the cold, vast darkness. They attacked with fear. They whispered into the crow's ears, "They will forget you. They will lose their way again. The light you brought will be exploited. It is all in vain." The crow did not argue. He responded with action. Everywhere he flew, he dropped a small spark of light, leaving traces of eternal brightness in the earth. From that moment, fires began to burn in the caves, light sparkled in the hearts of mankind, and hope never fully faded again. But the crow knew he could not fight forever. Eventually, he flew to the edge of the world, where the sky met the sea, where the sun sank to rest. There he hid the remaining light, the primal rays, inside volcanoes, shooting stars, and the dreams of humankind. Then, with his strength fading, he disappeared into the sunset. From then on, mankind had day and night, light and darkness, hope and challenge. And whenever the sun rose, they remembered the small but brave creature, the crow, who tricked even the gods and brought light back to the world. Did you find this chapter captivating? The battle isn't over yet. Chapter 3: The New Journey of the Raven, Guardian of the Dawn. When the sun first rose from the horizon, the entire world stood still. Not out of fear, but because no one had ever witnessed such a miraculous sight. The first beams of light descended onto the earth like golden ribbons, glistening on tree branches, falling on the surface of rivers, and kissing the cheeks of children who gazed up at the sky. People began to sing. Fires blazed in the villages. They called that moment the new day, the beginning of hope, a sign that darkness had been defeated, at least for now. But they didn't know this light had come at a cost, from blood, sweat, and the disappearance of a small, yet mighty creature, the raven. No one saw the raven again since that day. Far at the edge of the world, where the sea breeze whispered like the voice of ancestors, the raven lay motionless amid the waves. His black wings hung limp. His body was soaked with the ashes of his battle with darkness. The last bit of light he had hidden had drained him of all his strength. But he was still alive. A great wave pushed him ashore. The wind whispered his name. The gentle sunlight from the sun, the very child he had freed, warmed his tired wings. In a dreamlike haze, he saw himself flying among the stars, saw people using the light to build homes, plant trees, and embrace one another in joy. But he also saw the darker side of the light. He saw those who used the light to dominate. He saw wars break out over the sun. He saw some among humanity grow greedier and more arrogant, thinking they had mastered the light. The raven jolted awake. He understood, bringing light to the world wasn't the end. He had to guard it, because light, though beautiful, was also a challenge. It could warm, but it could also burn. It could guide, but it could also blind those who weren't careful. From that moment on, the raven began a new journey, the journey of the guardian of the dawn. He flew across the world. By day, he quietly observed from above. Hidden among the clouds, flying alongside the sun, he watched over places where the light was distorted or misused. He didn't intervene with power, but with wisdom, urging a father to listen to his children, sparking a dream in the heart of the lost, inspiring a young person to rise after a failure. By night, he returned to the deep forests, where the moonlight gently touched the river's surface. There he told stories to the wind, to the mist, that there were still good things in the world, that as long as there was one spark of light, darkness could never fully win. Gradually, people began to spread the stories. If you see a raven flying by when the sun rises, fold your hands in thanks, for that is the God who guards the dawn. However, the old man, the one who once held the light, had not given up. Though the dark shadows had been scattered, and his house had collapsed, he still lived. Consumed by hatred, he began a new plan. Instead of keeping the light, he would distort it. He created false lights, the radiant lights of power, of lies, of arrogance. He implanted them in the hearts of men, making them believe that what they had was the truth, the power, the real light. And once again, darkness silently crept back, this time hidden within the light itself. The raven saw it all. He knew a new battle was beginning, no longer between light and dark, but between true light and false light. He was no longer alone. Over the years, he had planted seeds of true light in the hearts of many. A mother sacrificing for her child, an old man teaching children to read, a teacher refusing to sell his soul. They were the new guardians of the dawn, silent, persistent, and steadfast, like the true light itself. The raven smiled. Though he couldn't rest yet, he knew this journey was worth it. The story isn't over yet, because you, the one who is listening, might also be a guardian of the dawn. Light up the world with kindness, courage, and wisdom. Chapter 4. The False Light Bearer, the Final Confrontation. Under the soft light of dawn, the world seemed peaceful. But deep within the earth, where light could not reach, a man was laughing in the dark. The old man, the one who once held the light, was no longer the same. His hair had almost all fallen out, his eyes glowed strangely, and his voice rumbled like the howling wind on the mountain. He no longer sought to keep the light for himself. Now he wanted to destroy its meaning. True light? Goodness? He scoffed. Let me show them the light that mankind desires, admiration, power, and the feeling of superiority. He blew false flames into the world. These flames did not warm, did not guide, but only dazzled. Anyone who looked at them saw themselves as special, saw themselves as right, saw themselves as the center of the universe. And bit by bit, humanity began to go blind in the light. The raven learned of this when he flew over a barren land. There, people lived in towering structures of bright lights, but their eyes were empty. They looked at each other without truly seeing. They were obsessed with the light shining on them, but they no longer recognized the true light. When a child laughs, when a poor person is given a piece of bread, when courage is held firm. The raven perched on a dry branch, his heart heavy. I brought light to the world, but now it's the very thing that makes them lose their way? But then from afar, a voice began to sing. In a humble shack, a young girl sat learning to read by candlelight. Though her hands were dirty and her eyes tired, the light in her gaze was truer than any lamp. The raven understood. The true light still existed. It wasn't in the bright places. It lived in the quiet hearts, still burning. He couldn't give up. The raven flew to the edge of the world, where the wind and waves met. There he called the name of the wind, called to the moon, called to the stars, old allies. He told them about the false light that was slowly devouring the souls of mankind. We need one last chance. A place, a moment, where true and false light will clash. Whoever wins will shape the world, said the raven. The moon agreed. The stars twinkled in approval. And the wind, the oldest of them all, sighed. Very well. But it can only happen where all light is erased. In the darkest night. That night, a total solar eclipse occurred. The sun vanished. All lights went out. The world was plunged into a thick darkness, as if light had never existed. In the midst of the night, the old man appeared, his body glowing brilliantly like a god. And the raven, small and black, stood opposite him, barely a shadow. The old man laughed loudly. You're ridiculous. Who will believe in the light of a filthy raven when I bring the entire radiant sky? The raven didn't answer. He simply bowed, touching his wings to the ground. And then, from all around, small specks of light began to appear. An old man lighting a lamp in a flooded house to save others. Doctor bandaging the wounds of someone who had once stolen from him. The boy sharing the last piece of bread with a stranger. Each speck of light, though small, when combined, they ignited into a sky of true light. The old man screamed. His body began to melt, unable to withstand the heat of sincerity and unconditional love. From a brilliant entity, he turned into a tiny dark speck and disappeared in the breeze. The sun returned, but this time it was brighter than ever. The raven stood high, his wings no longer completely black. They shimmered with a purple hue, the color of darkness now purified. He was no longer the deceiver he once was. Now he was the guardian between truth and falsehood, between light and darkness, between what is right and what is easy. And he knew no one could do this alone. He returned to the land where the young girl had once studied under candlelight. Now she had grown up and was teaching other children to read. The raven perched nearby, looking at her with warm eyes. True light needs protectors. He whispered, Are you ready? The girl nodded. Since then, every generation has had its guardians of the light. They aren't prominent, they aren't flashy, but they are the reason this world is still beautiful, still hopeful, and still has true dawns. If you've reached this part, maybe you too are a guardian of the light. Share goodness, be brave in the darkness, and never lose sight of the truth. Epilogue. What is the true light? Long ago, the world was engulfed in darkness, not because there was a lack of light, but because people didn't know what they truly needed. A small raven with intelligence and determination stole the light from the hands of the selfish one and brought it back to share with all of humanity. But that light, if not held with a heart full of love and courage, could still be distorted, becoming a tool for deception. The raven didn't just steal the light, it awakened the strength in each of us. Because true light is not found in the brightest of things. It resides in the kindness that no one sees. It resides in the silent sweat of sacrifice for others. It resides in choosing what is right when the wrong is so much easier. And above all, that light resides in you. If you ever feel that this world is too dark, remember, you don't have to light up the entire sky. You just need to keep one small flame bright in your heart. Then one flame, two flames, thousands of flames will light up a new dawn. If this story has touched you, help spread the light by liking the video to let YouTube know this is something worth spreading. Subscribing to the channel to not miss the next inspiring stories. Sharing this story with those who need a spark of hope in their lives. You are not just an audience to this story. You are a part of it. Be the one who keeps the light alive.